Goldfinger. He's the man with the Midas touch.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
He's our legal analyst. It is Brian Goldfinger, Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. Hello, Brian.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
We're doing good. How are you?
Cloud 9, the Raptors clinched.
Raptors clinched. It's great. But I want to give the listeners a quick visual. I pop into the studio, and only in Canada can you pop into a radio studio, and there's a television screen which is playing the Briar, the curling tournament, on the go between the Northwest Territories and Quebec with the hammer and the straw on the second end. This is amazing.
We should almost do a little live play-by-play, shouldn't we? Yeah, John Epping, he doesn't curl till a bit later on today. But good stuff.
Give Vic Ryder a run for his money.
I want to know what's on the Brian Goldfinger TiVo. What do you watch, man?
What do I watch? Like for fun?
Yeah, television.
Law
like
and Order.
TV shows.
No. See, okay, so the law shows drive me crazy because they're all wrong. And not only they're all wrong, is like, the law doesn't happen like this. Like on Law and Order, it doesn't go from, all right, we found a dead body to there's a murder trial the next day. And then I like watching the show Suits. Suits is the one show I do like, the one with Harvey Specter.
Yes.
But the show Suits, he goes from being a high-priced like Bay Street, Wall Street lawyer to all of a sudden he's a criminal lawyer, and then he's an environmental lawyer all on the same day. And he goes again, he just waltzes into other lawyers' offices like, I'm serving you with this statement of claim, and we're going to negotiate $1 billion settlement right now. Like, that doesn't happen. Lawyers just don't waltz up into other lawyers' offices and be like, I'm serving you and you're going to pay me millions of dollars. Like, that's not the way it works.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. I'm telling you, we just don't waltz.
Maybe you're doing it wrong. I don't know.
No, and then he's threatening him like, if you don't do this, I'm going to do that. And then, oh, just wait a second. Yeah, I just settled your case for $1 trillion. It's not the way it works. It just doesn't work like that. And by the way, there are security protocols when you walk into law firms. And more often than not, when you walk into the law firm, the lawyer you're seeking probably isn't there. He or she is probably in a meeting, on a call, in court. But Harvey Specter in the show Suits, whenever he shows up, you don't see the no-shows when he shows up. It's like, I'm going to go to this lawyer's office. Oh, they're not there. And then he goes back, they're not there. They outtake all that stuff, right?
Well,
they're always
you know what? It's like the show Cops, how they never show the paperwork. They never show the processing part of it. What about, like, is there any elements? Because the one thing that I saw, and this isn't laying blame, this is just, me kind of picturing Hollywood. But when I was in law class, they took us down to the courthouses in Toronto just to sit in on some cases. And there was one I was actually sitting in. It was a murder case. Right. So I'm expecting, lawyers, creme de la creme, highest paid, whatever. And I get up there and I'm like, boy, they don't talk like TV lawyers. No. That's for sure. They're fumbling around with the papers and they don't know what's going on. And the one guy couldn't get his witness there in time. He was still out of the country and blah, blah, blah. I was just like, wow.
If any of your listeners go to court to observe a trial, it is so dry and dull and boring, and there's no like Matlock aha moment. And there are so many, there are so many pee breaks. There are so many coffee breaks. There are so many, we need to take a break to find this document, Your Honor. It happens all the time. So it's not fluid like Hollywood. It's not fluid like you see on TV. It is dry. It is stop-start. It is, the union has ordered that the security workers and everybody, we need to take a break at this time, and this time. So once you get in a flow, you always need a break. And then we got to stop today at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock because somebody has to go home. It is just not like that and then there's a judges conference happening. So then we're going to take a whole week break and then we're going to reconvene in a few weeks. And then somebody gets sick, a juror gets, like, crazy things happen. It's nuts.
So you're telling me Liar Liar was not real?
I didn't see Liar Liar.
Oh my, Jim Carrey. It's one of the finest depictions of courtroom drama. Was there ever one of these moments, Brian?
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
There are some instances when you get the person who you're cross-examining to break down or to reveal something that they were not supposed to reveal on the stand because it's incriminating. That does happen, but I can't say it happens in every case. I can't say it happens all the time, and I can't say it happens like right away. Like I'm waiting for this moment. Like it's looking like looking for a needle in a haystack.
I'm very curious, if we can stay on this theme for a second here. I'm very curious, as a lawyer, how have you changed your in-court? Like, how long does it take you to establish the identity of how you approach different court cases when you're in front of a judge, if you're having to deal with a jury. Is that something that's kind of like development all the way along?
Yeah, it's tough. You got to feel out the judge, and you want to introduce and present yourself to the jury, and you want to lead with the right foot. And it also depends on the case, the theme of the case. As a plaintiff and representing injured accident victims, this is serious. And they say the best plaintiff lawyers make a judge and jury feel it in their hearts, and it makes them cry. It attaches them personally to the case. The best defense lawyers, the ones who represent the insurance companies, they make the jury laugh, and they think, well, this is not a big deal. So you have that contrast in personalities and in styles, where my job is trying to make the judge and jury feel and understand the pain and suffering my client has gone through. And my opponent's job is to make the judge and jury feel this is not such a big deal. We can laugh it off, because if the judge and jury laugh it off, then they're not going to award as much money to the plaintiff as they would otherwise.
Brian Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. He's joining us here on the Regulars, Jordan Mercier alongside Graham Elliott.
Interesting way of sort of setting up what we're getting into now in the way of coming into springtime, and a lot of things are going to be changing. More and more people are coming out, and of course, I'm assuming this is sort of the time of year where your workload starts to pick up a little bit, because more and more people are starting to venture out of the house because, hey, the sun's out, the snow's melting, those sorts of things.
Yeah, when there's more activity, in Canada it hits zero. It's patio weather, so patio weather it's gonna hit really, really soon. Trust me. And you're absolutely right. More people are out there. They're cycling. They're walking. They're rollerblading. Inline skating, whatever you want to call it.
I'm still on roller skates, so I don't know.
They're out having a good time. Stretching the legs, and drivers need to be extra cautious, and so do pedestrians. And I come in, you're out, and tell your listeners, it's important to just be safe and keep your eyes out for others. And just because there are bike lanes doesn't mean all of a sudden cars are not going to go in those bike lanes. It happens, and motorists should pay attention to those newly painted bike lanes on George Street, the nice bright green ones, because they do exist. And be cautious of cyclists as well.
I was going to ask, with the implementation of bike lanes, I mean, they're only in certain parts of the city, but how does that change, if there is a collision or anything like that? How did that sort of change the dynamic there?
Well, now there is a dedicated bike lane on George that's clearly painted in green for cyclists. And what it will do is it'll clearly give, a cyclist a designated lane to drive in, to cycle in. So the cyclist, number one, if there is a dedicated cycling lane, you should be in that lane, because if you're not in that lane, the first question that the police officer is going to ask, the first question that a judge and jury is going to ask is, why were you not cycling in that lane when there's a clearly green marked cycle lane? At the same time, for a motorist, why are you driving in the cyclist lane as well? So it creates important questions for both parties in the event of a collision. And it doesn't necessarily mean one party is going to be guilty or not guilty just because a collision happened in that lane. We need to know the why and other circumstances.
Does it feel like, and this is just my own observation, and obviously you're an expert at this, so maybe you can give me some clarity. But
I'm not an expert. I have expertise.
He's got expertise. Okay, he's got expertise. But does it seem like juries? It just seems like if you're in a car, you're already kind of against the 8 ball. Is that true? Like any kind of pedestrian accident, any kind of cycling accident, I feel like if you're in the car, even if the circumstances dictate that you were not the one in fault, I feel like you're already kind of starting behind in that scenario.
You're right. You are right. You have read your law well.
Thank you, Mr. McLean.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's a reverse onus. If a motorist, meaning you're driving a car and you hit a pedestrian, there is a reverse onus on the driver to show why he or she is not at fault for the accident. So you're presumed to be at fault after a motorist hits a pedestrian, and you have to show why you are not at fault for that accident. And sometimes, the motorist is not at fault. Sometimes the pedestrian is jaywalking, wearing all black. Okay, they might have had a few beverages, and they think that they're invincible and Superman. It happens. Sometimes they're running across. People run across the street without paying attention. It happens as well. So for motorists, everyone's got to be safe. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, good point. Brian Goldfinger, Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. I did want to ask you a couple of things, non-legal questions. One, you went to Disneyland.
Yes.
Should I ever go to Disneyland?
You should go to Disneyland with your wife and have a beautiful time and enjoy the lovely weather in Orlando. If you are going to Disneyland with more than one child under the age of 4, you should tread lightly. It is an exhausting theme park. It is large. It is daunting. It is intimidating. It is a very difficult trip. But if you are a big Disney head, you should go. You should not deprive your children of that experience.
I've never been. I know Graham's never been. It just seems like a circus. Like, what's the one thing you're dreading when you go there? Is it the long lineups? Is it the, rude people? Like, what is it a combination of everything?
The nice thing about the people are all in the same boat as you as a parent with young children. So the majority of the people there, frankly, it's all, moms and dads with their kids, and everyone's in the same boat. Like, hey, Lucy, come back here. Hey, Jim, don't go off running, sort of things, looking after their kids. The daunting thing is, well, the parking lot is daunting.
I can only imagine.
The parking lot is the size of the city of Peterborough, just geographically. It's huge. It is massive. And losing your car, it's like I lost my car in Aladdin Lot 272. Like, where's that lot? It's next to Simba 375. Like, it's brutal. And there's a lineup for everything. So there's a lineup to get into the parking lot. Then once you get to the parking lot, there's a lineup to get onto a tram, and the tram takes you from the parking lot to the security gate. Then there's a lineup for security. Then if you need to get tickets, there's a lineup, of course, to get tickets. Then there's a lineup to get into the actual park. And then once you've gotten into the park, it's a question of where do you want to go and how, what you want to see. And whatever it is you want to see, there's, of course, a lineup. But that's neither here nor there because they've introduced a fast pass, and any Disney experts out there will know what a fast pass is. And it'll basically take you to the head of the line, very quickly. But you're only entitled to a certain amount of fast passes per day, and you can recharge them. But the fast passes only give you access to certain rides in certain areas of the park. So you might have one fast pass for one ride, say Winnie the Pooh's ride, which is at one end of the park. And then you would have another fast pass for the other end of the day, which is at the other opposite end of the park. And you got to take a train to get to the opposite end of the park, or you got to walk the whole way, and it's a big park.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because Canada's Wonderland did the same thing with these fast passes, right?
Right.
But they didn't put in the proper sort of procedures, so I'm waiting in line, and I have to watch somebody be able to go on the same ride 3 times right in my face.
Yeah, it's not
and
cool.
I thought, boy, that's not cool at all.
No, not cool at all. And you know what I never appreciated when I used to be a kid going to Wonderland, you would see the different like Hanna-Barbera characters out, like Fred Flintstone.
Hanna-Barbera Land, yeah.
Right. They just be out. Well, nowadays the characters at Disney, they're out, but you need to get a fast pass sometimes, or you need to wait in line to like meet Mickey or meet Minnie or meet Donald or whoever it is.
Is that right,
That's kind of new. And I don't know if they're doing the same thing at Wonderland or not in terms of like meet Fred Flintstone, or I don't know. I don't
know if Fred's even still there anymore.
I don't know what characters are at Wonderland.
No, remember Wonderland lost, like Paramount doesn't own it anymore, so they had to rebrand all the rides. So they used to be movie rides, right? There would be like Top Gun.
I think Snoopy it's now Snoopy Land. It's not Hanna-Barbera Land anymore. It's Snoopy Land now.
Okay.
Which sucks,
but yeah, I remember it was cool to go on Top Gun because they had the music from the movie and it was cool. Now it's just nothing, and it's called Flight Deck.
Yeah,
that's it.
No, I know what you're talking about. Actually, I have a photo album at home with a picture of a young me sitting in a chair with Barney and Fred on either side of me.
Yeah, and you just meet these characters as you go, but now it's a bit, they're still around, but it's less impromptu, and then it's like Mickey is going to be here at this time, and you got to line up to see Mickey.
Or Ilsa from Frozen, or Snow White, or
Oh God, I can't wait. I can't wait.
You'll be there. You'll be there
soon. Yeah, Brian.
This is why I don't travel. This is why I don't leave my house.
Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. One other note that we need to talk about. Graham kind of teased it off the top. Wanted to get your thoughts. Toronto Raptors, first team in the NBA to clinch a playoff spot.
Fantastic. Golden age of Toronto Raptor basketball. But they need to keep winning because this team is still inherently flawed. And they need every advantage which they can get. And one of those advantages is going to be clinching home court advantage throughout the playoffs. And if they have any chance of, making some noise in the playoffs, they need that home court. So they need to stop. They need to keep winning.
They are, to me, unexplainably good at the Air Canada Centre. It is unbelievable with what they do. They, statistically the best home team in the NBA, and you think of some of those daunting other arenas, whether it's Golden State or even Houston, who they play tonight, huge game. But Toronto right now, man, that Air Canada Centre is rocking, and they play so well in front of the home fans.
They do well. They also play well in front of against a weakened Eastern Conference too. So you got to keep that in mind. So Houston and Golden State need to play each other a lot, and they got to play San Antonio and the whole mix. Toronto, when you have the Knicks and Brooklyn coming to town, you had who recently, like Atlanta and Charlotte. You just take care of business, and that's what they've been doing.
It's not exactly Patrick Ewing's New York Knicks coming into town.
Going to grab a question off the text message here from Dave the Bull Mustang. You sort of already touched on this a little bit, but he was asking about what about these suspect drivers, some of whom are impaired riding these scooters and e-bikes, coming in and out of traffic. They're on sidewalks, no license or insurance are required to ride these things. Can they be at fault?
Yes, they can. And more often than not, what we see, I see it a lot in London, actually, not as much in Peterborough, but people who ride their bikes or even e-bikes on the sidewalk and they get in an accident, believe it or not, those cyclists get tickets for riding on the sidewalk and not the motorist. I see it a lot in London, and you're looking
I'm perplexed.
Puzzled. You're looking puzzled.
Yeah.
So a bicycle is not supposed to be on the sidewalk.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And if they're riding on the sidewalk and then say a car is making a right-hand turn and boom, there's a collision. The police, I see it a lot in London. They give the cyclist the ticket and not the motorist. Yeah,
right.
Interesting.
Okay. That makes more sense to me.
I talked to one of our officers here with the traffic unit. In fact, there's also this misnomer as well because these e-bikes, people are taking them out and riding them on the bike trails.
Right.
And you can pedal your bike, but once you turn that motor on, it now becomes a motorized vehicle. Therefore, you're not supposed to be riding it on the trails. So there's that too.
There's a lot of bylaw, enforcement stuff going on that the police can do. I'm not familiar with that one, but certainly you got to be careful with those e-bikes.
The one thing I would say, Brian, the whole system's out of order. It seems. That's how I'm going to end that one right there.
You're telling me.
Brian Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. If somebody's interested in getting your services, Brian, how can they go about reaching out?
Visit the website, goldfingerlaw.com, or you can always email me at Brian, BRIAN, @goldfingerlaw.com.
We need to buy cousin Vinny next time he comes in.
I think so. You got to end it on the high spot. Brian Goldfinger Personal Injury Law.
You are a clever, resourceful man, Mr. Bond.
Well, thank you.
Perhaps too clever.
Yeah.